Hello, legendary leaders, and welcome back to another enlightening episode of Legendary Leadership Bites. I'm your host, Fatah Khan, and today we are going to cover the topic leading remote teams, the strategies for success. In today's digital age, I know leading remote teams has become increasingly common. As a leader, navigating the challenges of handling remote teams, of managing a dispersed workforce, which is across different locations, right? Sometimes across countries. And how do you actually be able to be effectively manage these teams, the remote teams, and how do you actually lead them successfully? Now, one of the things that you need to look at is in this particular thing, the number one thing that you need to look at is clear communication. Like in terms of the communication channels, like what is your communication channel and are you clearly communicating? Because establishing clear and consistent communication will help you to actually build that connection with your team and keeping them informed. Like you can utilize multiple tools, which are digital tools that are available, like Zoom, like you can use other tools like whichever are available in your organization so that you can help, but encourage open communication and in terms of help them to ensure that everyone stays connected, because connection is very important and communication is the key for success of any team. So clear communication channel is the first thing that you need to establish and have that clear communication with your team. And then the next one is set clear expectations. Like it's important for you as a leader to clearly define their roles and responsibilities, especially when your teams are working remotely. It is very important for you to actually help them understand what is their role and responsibility. Like give them the clear role and responsibility and the expectations from them, because many a times what we see is we actually try to have the 8 hours of schedule or the 9 to 10 hours of schedule in office, and we try to actually give tasks based on the schedule, based on the time. But as a leader, instead of looking at how many hours employee is working, think of how many hours like the employee works, but more than that, how many hours is he effective? Is he or she effective? So it's not about the number of hours, because it's quality versus quantity. So that's where it's important for you to set the expectations right rather than the number of hours, the clear roles and responsibilities in terms of having that what are the things that they need to do, like clear expectations from them. Like it helps your team members, the remote team members, to stay focused, motivated, and accountable for their work. Now, number three is promote trust and autonomy. Now, one of the big challenge with remote teams is a lot of leaders lag trusting their teams. They do not trust their teams, and when you lack that trust, your team members don't feel trusted, they don't feel good about working with you. So whether it's remote team or whether it is the team that is working with you in the premises, you always need to trust. But of course, when it comes to remote teams, there are multiple challenges, but you need to trust your team members. Like if there might be certain times, there might be infrastructure challenges, there might be network challenges, especially since we are working remotely connected through internet. There might be power cuts, right? There might be multiple other things. Of course, you make them set the infrastructure already in place, but there might be still technical challenges and other things. You need to trust your team members, but you have to have some mechanism, but always ensure that you start from trust. Right, to monitor there might be a mechanism, but it cannot be something where you actually don't trust your teams. So promote trust and autonomy so that you trust your team members, because when you trust your team members, then they will trust you, right? Whether they are managing their time in terms of how they are looking at their breaks and everything, you don't have to micromanage that. So you start from trust, because when you encourage that trust and open dialogue, when you show appreciation for their efforts, they would do more and more there. And then comes number four, which is foster team collaboration. Now, even when teams are remote, you can actually help teams to collaborate. And it is your duty as a leader to encourage the collaboration as a culture, right? Do not encourage anytime competition as a culture, because, of course, when it is a healthy competition between different teams looking at their performance metrics and other things or the customer satisfaction scores, it is good, but it is also about how you do the messaging. But more than that, within your teams, right? Are you actually making them to compete where they are actually trying to beat one another in terms of their performance and other things, or whether you are actually encouraging collaboration? Because when you foster team collaboration, when even when the teams are remotely working, there are multiple ways of doing that. For example, Zoom, you have Zoom rooms that you can create during your meetings. If you are doing your weekly meetings, you can create small Zoom rooms where your team members can meet each other, greet each other, talk to each other. You can do that as well. But of course, that is one way which is in the official setup. But what you can encourage them is in the unofficial setup. That is where they can go ahead and then talk to each other like over a phone call or in the Zoom meetings. But you need to help them to build that culture and have that collaboration in place, because when you foster team collaboration, that's when your team becomes strong. And when your team becomes strong and one, only then the teams can win. So that is something that you can look at from the point of view of collaboration in terms of helping that as a culture in your team. Because when you encourage cross functional collaboration, especially, and create opportunities for remote team members, they would feel motivated and they would share more ideas, more insights, and more best practices that they have been able to capture so far. And then comes the other step, which is prioritize work life balance. Now, this is also very critical because, especially when it comes to remote work, right, there is a thin line between work and personal life. Because a lot of people think, and I still heard a lot of challenges from people, especially during the COVID times. I saw a lot of professionals, especially the women professionals, who were resigning from their duties because they felt that they were made to do extra work. They were made to stay on extra hours just because they are sitting in the remote places, right? Their bosses told them that since you are not traveling, use the travel time and put it in the office hours. That does not make sense, because when you are actually like working remote, that does not mean that you actually even take their travel time into consideration and you put that across and you make them work there. No, you need to create that thin line between your work life and the personal life for your employees. Because when you are able to help them to bring that balance between their professional and personal life, they would be able to perform better. So remote work culture, when you encourage, also ensure that you put the boundaries between professional and personal life so that it does not lead into stress, burnouts, and when people are now ready to quit the job and move out just because they are feeling that burnout and stress, right? You can also offer them flexible work hours, if especially when there is work from home, remote work. The one advantage you have in hand is, for example, you have clients in different time zones working and you have certain critical projects. You can ask your team members to actually accommodate those hours, which is perfectly fine, but don't ask them to accommodate all those hours which they are traveling and their lunch hour, their tea time breaks and all, and then put that into office hours, because that's not the right way. Because that is their time, that's still their personal time. Even if they were in office, they would have taken a break. So just think as if they are in the office space. So give them that space so that they can breathe, they can have their own lunch break on time, they can have their snacks on time, and they don't have to like feel the burnout because everything is now added as work time, right? So when you actually are able to do that, that's when you can actually lead your team in a beautiful way. Because leading remote team, we all need to understand this, it requires adaptability, it requires empathy, and it requires great leadership skills. By implementing these strategies that we shared today about fostering a culture of communication, trust, collaboration, work life balance, you can successfully lead your remote teams and help your teams to grow and also your organization to grow. With that, thank you so much, legendary leaders, for joining me in today's episode. Until our next episode, keep leading with purpose and impact. Stay inspired, stay influential. Thank you.